The dark grey brush tip was dipped in Ling Xun's eyes blood, as if it had a spirit, and it began to outline the incompleteness of the weird pattern. Kai Kai. A mysterious line flows under the edge of the pen, like dragons and snakes galloping, like mercury pouring down the ground, bright red and translucent, full of indescribable charm. An ancient yellowed scroll, a strange pattern branded on the last page, and a dark grey seal pen as if awakened from silence, all together form a mysterious and heart-pounding picture. Ling Xun's eyes widened, staring at this scene, but he was unable to do anything. His whole body seemed to be under control, and the palm holding the seal brush did not obey orders at all, and arbitrarily sketched on the weird pattern. It was the first time that Ling Xun encountered such a strange thing, and he couldn't help but be shocked. He was able to judge that the cause of all this seemed to be related to the mouthful of blood he had just coughed up. It was because of that mouthful of blood that this dark grey seal pen was awakened from its silence, and it also made that weird pattern no longer as simple as it appeared on the surface. The picture presented in front of us at this moment is like an invisible big hand controlling everything. It is based on ancient scrolls, with blood as ink, and seal brush as the guide, constantly improving the incomplete, dim, dense and messy picture. Weird pattern. The incredible scene made Ling Xun almost unable to believe his eyes. Just now, he thought that he was very likely to die this time. Who would have thought that just because of an unintentional move by him would trigger such a mysterious change? What does all this mean? Without waiting for Ling Xun to understand, suddenly, I felt the blood around my body was being pulled by a strong force, rushing to my right palm in unison. At this moment, the dark grey seal pen held in the palm of his hand suddenly released a force of swallowing, and through the skin between the palms, it continuously absorbed the blood in Ling Xun's body. Gurgle tilde. Ling Xun could even hear that his own blood was pouring into the dark grey seal pen like gurgling water. Damn. Ling Xun's heart was anxious. The continuous flow of blood would only speed up the progress of death. If he didn't stop it, it wouldn't take long at all, and he would die on the spot due to excessive blood loss. Ling Xun struggled frantically, but he couldn't move at all. The dark grey seal pen was like an unshakable mountain, constantly absorbing his blood, and then waving the edge of the pen to write down a red track on the weird pattern. Ling Xun's face became paler and paler, his lips were purple and blue, and his whole person seemed to have lost his vitality, showing signs of decay. How could this be? Could it be that this pen will use its own life to repair this weird pattern? Ling Xun felt bitter in his heart. He thought that this book that Mr. Lu left behind would help him change his life against the sky and be reborn in nirvana. Who would have thought that all this would actually kill him? Ling Xun, who was sitting in front of the desk, was like a manipulated puppet at this time, holding a seal pen in his right hand, constantly sketching on the last page of that ancient scroll, making rustling sounds. The atmosphere is quiet, but Ling Xun can't make any sound. His face is getting paler and paler, his breath is getting weaker and weaker, and his consciousness is getting more and more blurred. He can't stop all this. Maybe he can only wait to die. It's just that Ling Xun never expected that he had just arrived in the Xiao Empire, had just settled in Fian village, and was just about to practice hard. But the shadow of death had already begun to come. Is this life? Inexplicably, Ling Xun remembered the world-shattering scenes he saw just now, and a long sigh from the majestic figure seemed to echo in his mind again. Time is not with me. Then, Ling Xun's eyes darkened and he completely lost consciousness. The night was dark, the stars poured from the window, and the mountains in the distance were vast, lonely and deserted. The thin young man was lying on the desk, breathless, and his right palm was drawn by the dark grey seal pen, constantly sketching the last page of the ancient scroll. I don't know how long it took. The dark grey seal pen suddenly stopped, and the sharp sword-like pen suddenly burst out with dazzling golden flames, illuminating the entire dark room. Then, the whole seal pen burned and disappeared into the weird pattern on the last page of that mysterious scroll. A strange wave surged up from the scroll, and an obscure voice sounded, floating like the sound of heaven. However, in just an instant, this ancient scroll turned into a ray of light, poured into the unconscious Ling Xun's body, and disappeared. At the same time, in the ink-like night above the vast 3,000 mountains, the dazzling stars are forever hanging in the sky, circulating along the eternal trajectory. However, at the same time that the mysterious ancient book disappeared, an indescribable circle of invisible ripples suddenly appeared in the night sky, spreading like wave boards in the middle of the sky. In an instant, hundreds of millions of stars in the sky trembled as if they were frightened, and then they disappeared in a flash, and they recovered as before. On the same night, the Ziyao Empire, on the outskirts of the imperial capital, at the top of the 9,900-foot-high stargazing platform, the night wind blows and roars like a dragon. This is the tallest building in the imperial capital. From here, you can have a panoramic view of the entire imperial capital. At this time, it was already dark, and an old man in a black robe stood alone on the stargazing platform. He had white hair and a hunched body, as if a gust of wind could blow him away. This old man is the heavenly sacrifice of the empire, an old man who enjoys a transcendent status in the Ziyao Empire and is wise to the sky. It is said that this heavenly sacrifice has lived for a long time. When the founding emperor first ascended the throne, the old man was already the only owner of this stargazing platform. Like many other days in the past, tonight the old man came to the top of the stargazing platform alone as usual. It's just that today he didn't meditate as usual, and he didn't go to watch the stars. He just stood quietly in front of the railing, looking at the prosperous red dust covered in the night in the distance. He was silent and seemed a bit abnormal. Sure enough, a vision will come tonight. After a long time, the old man seemed to sense something, suddenly raised his head. A bright luster flashed in his eyes full of vicissitudes of life, and looked at the night sky far away. But in just a moment, the old man frowned and murmured, "Why is it gone again?" Impossible. The sky will send a vision to the world, and there must be signs, whether it is hidden in the changing situation, or hidden in the stars in the sky. Within the cycle, there may be disasters from outside the region, or there may be auspicious light emerging from the mountains and rivers. But why, tonight's vision disappeared? Could it be that the old man deduced it wrong? In the frigid wind, the old man's white hair fluttered, and there was a rare dignified expression on the gully-like old face. He knew that something must have happened tonight, but with his own strength, he could not observe it concretely. Such an abnormal situation has hardly happened in these years. No matter how old the old man is, he is still a heavenly sacrifice. It is the existence in the Ziyao Empire that even the royal family has to be in awe. A vision, even the heavenly sacrifice, is difficult to see. The meaning of this itself is enough to shock the world. After pondering for a long time, the old man suddenly let out a long sigh, turned and walked down the star observation platform. That night, a talisman from the heavenly sacrifice from the star observation platform was sent to the imperial study in the palace for the first time, and even the present emperor who had already rested was alarmed. The edict wrote, "There is a vision that descends on the 3,000 mountains in the southwestern border of the empire. This vision is mysterious and unpredictable. With the power of this old man, it is impossible to peep into its mysteries, and there is a fear that a peerless treasure will appear. I hope your majesty will treat it with caution." Peerless treasure. I'm afraid he didn't even think of celestial sacrifice, because the 4 words he used made the southwestern border of the empire suddenly enter the highest level of the imperial capital's field of vision, which caused a lot of trouble in the days to come. Ling Xun was awakened by the sound of a rooster, and when he opened his eyes, his consciousness was in a trance. Not dead? Ling Xun raised his body lying on the desk, and then noticed that it was already dawn, and a ray of dawn was projected from the window, casting a warm light. Indeed not dead. Ling Xun took a deep breath, feeling the breath of the air reverberating around his body, and finally dared to be sure that he was still alive. He hurriedly checked his body and found that his chi and blood were strong, his chi was well connected, and there was no trace of injury at all, as if everything he encountered last night was just a dream. Klingzon knew that this was definitely not a dream. Last night, he clearly remembered that his vitality was constantly fading away, he was on the verge of death, and he couldn't even control the blood in his entire body, which was constantly being absorbed by the dark grey seal pen. Wait, what about the seal pen? Lingzon was suddenly stunned, looked around the desk, and found that not only the dark grey seal pen, but also the ancient scroll was missing. Lingzon was shocked and quickly got up to look for it. This is the most precious treasure left by Mr. Lu. How could he lose it in his own hands? But he almost rummaged through the room, but couldn't find these two treasures. Lingzon frowned, and his heart became more and more anxious. Did someone steal them in the dark? Lingzon was a little unsure, and at this moment, he suddenly noticed that there was an extra door in his empty sea of consciousness. It was indeed a door. The whole body was bright red and translucent, as if soaked in blood water, and a mysterious pattern of extremely complicated and complex was engraved on the surface of the door. Looking at it carefully, the pattern filled with a wild and ancient atmosphere. Just looking at the pattern gave Lingzon a vaguely familiar feeling of déjà vu. It was the weird pattern branded on the last page of the scroll. Suddenly, Lingzon remembered that the pattern engraved on the door was somewhat similar to the weird pattern he had seen. But in comparison, the pattern on this portal is no longer incomplete, showing a sense of completeness that is repeated over and over again. This portal is quietly suspended in the empty sea of consciousness, indescribably mysterious. Lingzon's face suddenly became weird, and an uncontrollable thought popped up in his heart. Could it be that the disappearance of the scroll and the seal pen has something to do with this sudden door?